接下来我们跟 BLG 交手了，然后他们比较喜欢打后期嘛，我们也要打准备后期，我们也要准备打后期，然后感觉我们要点那个风暴狙击。
Doinby and co. placed their faith in SMLZ in game one and are thusly rewarded. But I gotta ask a question there off of what we just heard from Doinby.
Right.
Was it a case of chicken before the egg? Because they were saying, hey, we're playing against BLG. We know they like to play late game. We'll just go ahead and take that Gathering Storm. We'll take that Jinx Karma Shield composition and preempt the late game themselves.
Yep. I feel like their expectation was that they were going to meet BLG in the late game.
Yeah.
No matter what, there was going to be a late game fight. That was just going to be the prep. I would say a Chinese New Year's long prep because that was a long time since we've last seen them. And it was kind of weird because they didn't expect BLG to be able to come out with such an early game advantage. But at the end of the day, if you have that much of a scale and composition, you're like, all right, just hold back, get your items, and then suddenly you can just take these fights. That was the case here. And I thought currently SMLZ is on point.
He certainly is, putting up some huge numbers for the team. And like you said, it seemed like Rogue Warriors were a bit caught by surprise at how aggressive BLG were making with their mid-game decision-making. This is the evolution for the team that we've wanted to see them grow if they can take their strong lanes and actually propel them into a decisive mid-game. The trouble was they just couldn't break the inhibitor line. SMLZ held down the fort. Mouse, despite suffering in the laning phase, was able to get nice and big during the late game, and it seemed like the only person who really suffered was Flawless.
Yes, and I would say that it should have been a lot harder for the lineup of Rogue Warriors in the early portions of the game. It was on BLG to utilize their mid-game push towards bottom side. It comes down to just committing to the fight on the bottom side of the map. Remember back to when they got the blue buff steal and, of course, the kill onto Skarner, that should have looked towards a bottom lane dive instead. A lot of the teams in the LPL have been a lot more aggressive, taking a harder stance and saying if the mid laner's not going to be involved or if we're waiting for a 5-second TP timing, we have the opportunity to dive. Rogue Warriors did exactly that when they went up against WE. They're not afraid of going for bottom lane dives, but the moment they have one inkling of a push priority in mid lane, BLG, if they find themselves in an early game lead, they have to go for it.
We'll see how this breaks out in Game 2, because Rogue Warriors, with side selection, have chosen red side, putting BLG back on blue with first pick. Already, we've got 4 of those same bands, Kog'Maw, Jarvan, along with the likes of that Camille and Azir. If we're following the pattern, this should be a Lee Sin.
You gotta wonder, is Lee Sin a problem? They will consider it a problem, because Rogue Warriors, Flawless has even showed that he's willing to play the Skarner. Wasn't as effective, but he can go back to the Kha'Zix, the Nidalee, and this time around he's saying to the enemy team, I can play around the composition, I can be that kind of tank for my team. He failed on Skarner the first time around, I guess he won't have it the second time.
He certainly will not, as SKS says, all right. We might have put you behind, but this is how you're actually supposed to play it. You're not supposed to be bullied out of your own jungle. We'll see how BLG sort of sculpt their composition around this, because I can't believe I'm saying this. They give up first pick Xayah, which would be quite interesting to see if SMLZ decides to take that on, especially knowing the likes of Tom Kench is still up, that Karma for Doinby.
Yeah, they can hold on to these picks a little bit more. And that's the thing about Rogue Warriors that are really surprising, is that they have been undefeated when they've gone towards red side. And this is them choosing red side. A lot of teams find problems in the red side, especially in this meta, when you see mages in the mid lane. So what do you really counterpick? That's what Icon's currently asking a lot in OMG. But Rogue Warriors have some weird counter picks. The one, of course, coming to mind is Doinby's Karma, Doinby's Lulu. He can hide his picks, have a proper matchup when it feels like that's to be the case. And SMLZ already showed in the last game, going into the second phase, can go towards the Jinx. So Rogue Warriors have found real solace in the red side.
They certainly have. That's counterpick jungle now for Flawless. Zach going to be locked in here. Still huge engage and pretty strong peel as well. But that means that Zoe, which was previously falling down in the priority for BLG, is open for Athena. We call him the sleepy mid laner, but he is anything but sleepy on Zoe.
And we saw what, of course, Athena could do when they went up against LGD and had the same pick. Of course, he's been incredibly good, Athena, on the Zoe pick. A lot of mid laners have been. But with how BLG utilize it, they've usually had a tank in the top lane. Last time up against LGD, they had the Cho'Gath in the top side of the map. And the reason why that was impactful, it was because later on in the game, Zoe could weave in and out of his backline. The tank, of course, could be able to soak the damage. If they have Warmogs, he can come back out and just constantly look to poke. So when they have priority and when they have the lead, it's so much harder to get away from the damage.
Well, Raz, I've got some bad news for you. Gangplank locked in for Amazing J. We know how the solo lanes for BLG are going to work themselves out. And I guess the only place you could look to take a tank now is Road on support in the bottom lane. And Rogue Warriors, well, knowledgeable of this. They've got the opportunity to ban out Jin Zhao and Road's pool, as Mouse is going to be taking counterpick, or an attempted counterpick, with this Gnar.
And you got to believe that Stake is a happy man at this point in time, because not only was he able to counterpick top side of the map in the first phase, he's able to hold on both of his carries going into the second phase. A lot of people would be worried about that, but SMLC's already showcased that he has a strong pick. Looking to Tom Kench and Zach, he has a lot of safety in these team fights as well, so he can still go back towards the Jinx. It all comes down to what's the style they want to play today. Is it going to be a mid lane centric composition, or is it going to be an AD carry centric composition? They can make the choice between supportive mid laner and a hyper carry AD carry, or supportive AD carry, and of course, like a Cassio, like we saw in the last game when Athena was on.
Well, we do see the Malzahar ban away from Doinby, so perhaps BLG respecting the potential mid lane threat of that mid laner for Rogue Warriors, as Xayah stricken away from Jin Zhao, so he'll have to show us something a little bit newer here. But now we're getting down to the final ban. We're looking at 80 carries for both teams, and Rogue Warriors get their first pick as Galio taken away.
And Kalista is still up. So with Caitlyn being banned, Xayah being banned, going onto this phase, Rogue Warriors could pick themselves up a Kalista. You got to wonder why they wouldn't at this point in time, with Karma being covered.
The classic.
All right.
Yeah, Doinby has this priority, of course. We know that he is a very vocal player, and he does like to play these supportive mid laners, but decide to focus on that. And you mentioned that the Kalista is still open. Jin Zhao could try to take it here, or he might look for something a bit different with the likes of this Sivir, which suddenly, when you put a Skarner next to that, when you put a Gangplank dropping cannon barrages from above, it's quite scary.
It is, especially since BLG are still holding on to their support pick as well. It could be the Janna, and he's hovering it already. So it seems like they recognize they don't know what 80 carry they're going up against. They just want a pushing lane. So I would like to see the Janna pick, but the only worry, if that does come through, is that they're once again without a tank. It could just be the Skarner that they're hoping for succeeds. But then, how do they start their fights? They're almost reliant on the slow, of course, of GP ulti, and the speed up of Sivir, and of course the ulti, the stinger coming out of Skarner.
Ooh,
oh, there we go.
Second swap over to the Ornn. Now they've got multiple methods of engage. That's Skarner to race in, the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, and now the Ornn to help knock people up and set up for repositioning from Jin Zhao and Athena.
And that changes the worries entirely. There's no longer a worry about how to start the fights because you just have an Ornn to send out that horn. So the fights are going to be a lot easier for BLG. So they're going to have to be a little bit, I would say, more focused in how they pin to the back line.
Well, we saw they had a very focused early and mid game in our first match today. Now it's their chance to show that they've learned from the mistakes that they made in that game one, because that's still a Jinx. That's still a Karma. That's still the Tom Kench. 3 of the same champions out of Rogue Warriors that has the same insurance if they decide to take it towards that huge late game.
But I like the fact that BLG have not only diversified their damage, they don't have a double AP composition. Now they can look towards the GP to come in and deal that damage as well. So now they have the poke damage coming out of Zoe, and of course, long range, global ulti from GP, and once Sivir gets her item, she's a pretty big threat to the front and back line.
We'll see if that's going to be the case, if we will go towards that big late game, or if some of the earlier engages from BLG will be able to break this game open, because once again, junglers are going to be so important during this early game. The likes of the Skarner and Zac roaming around. BLG and SKS specifically playing against former teammate Flawless, paired up against a very strong composition. The anime squad versus the new super team, the team of super players in Rogue Warriors.
Yeah, definitely. Funniest thing about this, other than the anime squad,
of course,
is the fact that we've always hit on, are Rogue Warriors really a super team? They built this team together. A lot of strong brand name players, of course. Of course, I would say Spring Split MVP for Doinby had a lot of strength when he was on Xiaogu. And you talked about the top lane of Mouse, strong top laner for EDG. But then you really looking towards the lineup and you're like, yeah, sure, super team. But, I mean, are they talented? Are they incredibly talented in the current environment? We have Suning Gaming coming up later going up against EDG, and both those teams are star-studded teams.
Yeah.
So even though there are massive brand names on Rogue Warriors, they have to prove on the Rift that they can perform so far SMLZ is doing just that.
He certainly is. Fans cheering on their teams, and as you said, Raz, Rogue Warriors, we look at huge brands, but these are players that never quite made it. Mouse leaving EDG, Flawless leaving IMA, Doinbi leaving Chaogu and Jingdong, SMLZ leaving OMG. Massive legacies of these players, and now they've all gone their separate ways from the big names, and they've made their own big name.
Yeah, and a lot of these players, of course, it's a new start. It's a new start for Mouse, for example. A Mouse that, even though we call this a super team, he's on a new environment, going up against a lot of star-studded top laners, now going up against Amazing J. A lot of the times, he's the one who's kind of falling behind. I want to see what kind of impactful nature he has now that he has a proper matchup for himself. Of course, Gnar going to be able to bully out the GP, but he has to be able to make that early game advantage mean something, because GP is going to be fine just in this lane as long as he's gaining the gold, as long as he's reaching that item threshold.
And of course, taking that Airy to further emphasize the harass, as it's going to be a wolf start out of Flawless as he heads over to blue buff second. SKS going for 2 camps. Those are the Raptors. You mentioned the red side start of Skarner.
It's a typical start coming out of Zach that starts on Wolf Camp, gets to the level 2, goes towards both the blue buff and the Gromp, clears them at the same time, so he gets a full clear on the bottom side of the map at a shorter time. That being said, because he goes for a full clear at the bottom side of the map, usually the worry is that when he finally gets the red buff, he gets contested by more aggressive junglers. They will already have a strategy going towards that red buff, recognizing what the path actually is. He's able to do this just because usually Skarner is not going to be looking for early skirmishes. And since he has a Karma in the mid lane, Zach's going to be able to just completely full clear his side without meeting anyone in his red.
Yeah, already we can see Doinbi aggressively using his mana in lane to push that in, just in case SKS is feeling a little angry and wanted to try to fight. Still, Athena picks himself up a Proto Belt and tries to push Doinbi back. Scuttle Crab first for SKS as he finishes off his blue. Now he's invading in.
Yeah, had he taken the Gromp, he would have been able to net himself a level 4 start, but he's just trying to get the Scuttle Crab as fast as possible and look to get any bit of information on the enemy side. He's getting Gromp now, so that's good. That's the fastest approach to be able to get yourself a level 4 start, especially on Skarner that's trying, in this kind of a meta where a lot of junglers still have gank pressure at level 3, he finds it more important to get experience underneath them because it's going to be a lot harder for him to find that effectiveness. So getting Vision out immediately, pulling in the Scuttle Crab along with the Gromp so you can get that extra bit of experience to get the 4. We've seen this start before. Just, I think Contract in the NALCS has done this, where he's able to get the proper vision for his lanes, so Zach can't necessarily impact those lanes early on. And SKS is already at a good lead for himself here.
Some very defensive wards placed on the top side. One, watching Doinbi's path into the jungle, another lane ward placed by Amazing J as he's expecting to take a lot of harass. Already we can see Mouse just bullying in, and that was Gathering Storm on Mouse, the Gnar. So it looks like, again, Rogue Warriors might be expecting themselves to go to 35, 40 minutes.
Well, he can do that a little bit more easily because Mouse, or at least the Gnar pick, Gnar does go towards a sorcery primary tree. So that option is there unless if he wants to go Scorch. So Scorch is for the early bit of damage and laning phase, but since he already wins out the matchup so heavily, he can go towards a later scaling.
And with that insurance, Rogue Warriors feeling pretty happy about themselves. You can see SMLZ's Eminence in lane as that Crystal Spire is denied. SKS forcing Flawless back out, turns back towards those wolves that he started just a bit ago.
Yeah, here's the thing about this matchup. Doesn't matter that Zach has his red buff. Skarner is a skirmisher. You can just spam out his Q. So Flawless probably get out of here. He doesn't have the lanes to help him out.
You can see the push from Athena and Jin Zhao. You mentioned that lane control from the Sivir, and of course, once Zoe gets level 5, she's able to clear those back creeps with just a single Q, the Paddle Star. So just able to further control that lane in mid as SKS is just living in this side of the jungle. He's got a Skarner infestation.
That's a bit of a sad face coming out of him. He can smite this. This is going to turn into a smite battle.
Well, they both have Smite. That's the knock-up. Flawless is able to secure it as SKS just walks in and right back out.
Yeah, so smart from Flawless to utilize his E to get the CC on top of SKS so it doesn't even become a Smite battle at the end of the day. So at the very least, he get his own wolves while going towards his Raptor camp. A little annoying, but he's going to have to take that L just because, of course, his lanes aren't going to be able to help him. So as long as he gets the wolf camp, then that's a win for him.
Still, the lanes persist. Once again, we're seeing SMLZ opening up a slight advantage. In the top lane, Mouse doing something similar. In the mid lane, Athena still keeping pace with Doinby. As Road and Jin Zhao, I mean, they are constantly attacking and trading and attacking, forcing SMLZ back. But even in the previous game when they were doing the same thing with the likes of Xayah Rakan, SMLZ still had nearly perfect CS.
Yeah, this time around it's going to be a little bit harder, I would say, just because both lanes, I would say, hitting onto what the matchups actually are. Both lanes have minion dematerializer, but SMLZ and Killua are finding it a little bit harder to utilize it just because they don't necessarily want to push out knowing that SKS is constantly, at the time, pressuring the bottom side of the map. So they're just taking the pressure, and hopefully they're not going to be losing their tower around like 8 minutes, because if that's the case, then Rogue Warriors have done something awfully wrong. They want to be able to impact that lane as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the early game trust fall, right? Like, hey, I'll carry the late game if you let me get to the late game. Already we can see a bit of an invade out of Athena and
Comes a dive.
SKS. They're going to hop in the Paddle Star Burst onto SMLZ. He uses heal, but he spat right back out. Stopwatch resets as Jin Zhao going to help get first blood as that Cannon Barrage from Amazing J makes all 5, and they finish off Killua.
And this was the dive I was looking for in the last game. BLG once again finds themselves in a position where bottom lane and mid lane are heavily pushing. This time around, instead of looking for a blue buff steal, they go for a bottom lane dive, and it nets them the kill, and it puts SMLZ incredibly behind.
Almost at the exact same time, too. SKS, instead of going for the blue, turns over towards his red and gets himself right back in. Flawless going to try to play catch-up by absorbing some of the lane CS of SMLZ, but SKS has already proven his worth on this Skarner during the early game with the likes of these ganks.
Yeah, so one thing I really wouldn't like, of course, is pinning the blame solely on the pick ban in the last game.
Sure. Yeah.
Because even though, sure, they don't have that late game incentive, they still had a massive early game lead. And we would have that trust with like an EDG, a better team to carry that lead. This time around, we see actual progression coming out of BLG, recognizing that if we have a lead, there's no reason to not go for these dives. The dive execution was strong as well because Road utilized his stopwatch to cut the tower aggro. So suddenly it's like, all right, you know what? They can stand under the tower for however long they want.
Level 6, he knows Devour is on cooldown, getting some damage onto SMLZ, whose flashes away. Just have to respect the threat from BLG. And this is speaking to the evolution of the team. They are playing for the lane. They are playing for the decisive mid-game advantages.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it really started to happen once SKS joined the lineup. We started to see more of a mid-game forming out of BLG because Athena was starting to be more of just a late-game team fighter. Remember, one of our earlier criticisms of BLG was the fact that Athena was dying consistently in lane, had no laning phase. But the moment they started to have a consistent jungler, this time being SKS, he started to have more movements with SKS, starting to get more vision control. This time around, of course, getting the proper dive in the bottom side of the map. So you're seeing better early laning phase from Athena just because the synergy out of him and SKS is working so beautifully.
Yeah, SKS has enabled Athena, has enabled Jin Zhao, has enabled even Amazing J as another roam into the jungle of RW forces SMLZ and Killua back from their turret, allowing Jin Zhao and Road to take that first blood.
There we have it. 9 minutes, 40 seconds on the dot. And it's harsh because you're just in a lose-lose situation if you're Rogue Warriors, where Zoe's not losing too many minions in the mid lane because she's not fully committing to the dive. If she fully commits to the dive, she gets the kills. If she doesn't fully commit because you've already left the lane, well, guess who's taking the tower? So ultimately, great early game pressure coming out of BLG.
Not to mention the fact that Athena hasn't dropped a game on this Zoe yet. With a win here, he would actually tie up with Flawless's stats on Lee Sin, 5-0. If he is able to close out this match. Still, it's only a 2,000 gold advantage. The Dragon was turned away from by BLG. Still, huge priority on that because it is an Infernal. but not going to be taken just yet as SMLZ looks to recall after giving up that turret.
And that's why they're coming back to the bottom side of the map. There's still value coming to this lane. They're not necessarily going to immediately put their bottom side towards mid lane to take the tower or top lane to impact that lane. They recognize that Infernal Dragon is going to be the next objective. They don't want to look to immediately trade objectives with Rogue Warriors, so they're going to want to have the bottom lane push out maybe 2 more waves since the bottom lane outer turret is gone. Put proper control around Infernal, take Infernal, and then suddenly all eyes are going to be towards the mid lane. So the plan has already been laid out by BLG. It's up to Rogue Warriors to try and stunt it.
For now, it seems like Rogue Warriors are just trying to staunch the bleeding and contain their lanes as Boomerang Blade further harasses Flawless inside of his own jungle. Look at the vision they've got spotting him out all over that side of the map. Teleport and Cannon Barrage ready for Amazing J. They're pushing mid lane, they're pushing bottom, and SKS has already started the Infernal. BLG looks like they're just a step ahead in this early game.
Yeah, they're even allocating their resources properly here. They don't need numerous people on top of Dragon. SKS can take it alone. And they can just have Sivir and Orin continuously push out the bottom lane. Look at the positioning of Jinx and, of course, the Tahm Kench here. They're going to be underneath their own tower. That's hilarious.
Redemption is used. Jin Zhao walks forward. Athena is on the way. Killua is the target. He's still got that flash ready. Sleepy Trouble Bubble catches up to Flawless, but they're pushing all the way up to a tier 2 to further deny any of the experience from SMLZ.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision because their other option was to push up mid and try for that tower knowing that 2 people were in the bottom side of the map. But that left open the fact that Killua could go mid.
Oh, and you can see the attempted engage from Flawless, forces the flash out of road. You can see the TP from behind. Doinby joins in. He manages to drop a stopwatch. Mouse gets bursted. A huge three-man slam. Doinby over the wall. Keeps SPS from retreating road. Manages to escape, but only just as Flawless is pulled back in way too deep. Sleepy Trouble Bubble from Athena prevents Doinby from following through. And without SMLZ's flash, without any items, he cannot engage. 3 kills, BLG.
That was a scary position for BLG as a whole. 2 people looking for a flank, but they were able to group up as a team, disengage, and attack this people who were actually looking to flank. So Mouse was a victim in that one. Flawless, of course, trying to back him up, dies as well. So 3 people down on the side of Rogue Warriors looking for anything, a flank, to push BLG away from that siege.
Just couldn't quite find it, even despite that 3-man stun. And it all starts because Flawless says it's time to go.
Double TP coming through, immediately noticed, of course, by BLG, comes up with a TP of their own. So great, you have 2 people starting to flank, but suddenly they're getting flanked by Amazing J as well, and they immediately come onto Mouse. Sure, Mouse gets a great 3-man knock into the wall, but there's no real follow-up there. SMLZ got poked up, cannot join this fight. He's out completely, so your one true carry in this team fight isn't going to help, so the damage is heavily in favor of BLG.
Even getting that 1 single bonus gold from the kill onto Doinby. Just so much going right for BLG right now.
Great pressure from Athena in that entire team fight. The fact that he recognized that they just win the fight as long as he denies SMLZ from coming through that choke point. Gets a lot of burst damage onto SMLZ when that was coming through. So that was the main reason why he had to escape entirely. Killua had to use his W to help him out. And in the meantime, Flawless, Doinby, Mouse, we're all getting hurt in that entire fight.
Athena just putting out some huge damage on the likes of this Zoe if he manages to catch anyone out of position. And take a look at the kill participation for BLG. 100% for Amazing J, Athena, and Jin Zhao. They are communicating effectively. They are working together to make sure these kills happen. These dives in the bottom lane, and then the turnaround fight in front of the Dragon.
This is beautiful that this team has come so far because of this, because we didn't even have that much faith in BLG coming into this split. Essentially the same roster except with SKS still manning the lineup. I guess SKS was in the lineup at the end of BLG/IMA last split.
But that last year, they were searching for that jungler. They were searching for that final puzzle piece to this team, and they found it.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice for them to actually find that, as well as losing their coach as well. So losing Kesman, but still keeping to the same core 5-man worked out incredibly well for them. And in the preseason, they must have done something to really shore up their communication.
And we can see Rogue Warriors with a spontaneous siege in the mid lane. All 5 members chunk that turret down to about 25% health, perhaps attempting to trade, but the top tier 1 has already been broken, and Jin Zhao is still working on the top tier 2. Eventually, someone's going to have to deal with that as recall is initiated by Killua and the likes of SMLZ, but already Road zoning people away. You can see SKS is using this window of opportunity to take the Rift Herald. So BLG just very decisive with these trades that they're making and coming out ahead with them.
Are they committing fully for the tower? No, they're not going to be able to get Thorn. He's going to auto it. Stop that man.
Slowed down. They finally decide to back away. Rift Herald taken by SKS. SMLZ cannot quite follow because he was slowed by the likes of that Bellows Breath.
So that's 90% of the tower's HP. Just because Sivir stayed in the top side of the map and Horn and the rest of BLG as a whole forced Rogue Warriors to come through the lane to defend it or pick a disadvantageous fight. So really good communication coming out of BLG just to say, hey, they can't really stop you at all. And they've completely ditched out that mid lane fight, or at least looked for the tower. So Rogue Warriors, realizing that they needed to defend the top side of the map, or at least they lose a free turret once again, were not willing to take the trade. BLG gets a lot out of it.
And look at the turnaround. SMLZ is now 25 CS behind Jin Zhao, a full level down. Athena, with an experience advantage in the mid lane, is keeping Doinby occupied and has nearly broken down that mid-tier 1 turret. Things are looking scary for Rogue Warriors as BLG, they're just continuing to play this mid-game very decisively. But again, this is a limited window that they have to play with. SMLZ back on that jinx. The same Karma and Tom Kench from Game 1 looking to scale into the late game. We even know that this is happening because Mouse took Gathering Storm. Can they close this game out before Rogue Warriors start to come online?
That's a good question. I mean, ultimately, this time around, it's a faster pace in which they're playing to. The only question now is if they can match them in the later points of the team fight. Oh, it looks like they actually want to look for the fight. Okay, getting out of there. But also, of course, the next point is if they make another mistake. Making a mistake going up against a Jinx with 70% crit, of course, the 3 items that I'm talking about, is tough. Because that's real snowball potential coming out of it. The items are not live yet. Won't be live for quite a bit of time for Rogue Warriors. A lot of window for BLG to work with.
And that's exactly the window that you see them use right now. The mid-tier 1 broken down just by sheer brute force. BLG group is 5, and Rogue Warriors decide they can't fight. Backing away, ceding the ground for now. This dragon is a cloud, so not huge priority for BLG in terms of those big fights, but that could provide some extra chase potential for SKS with that Predator if he finds someone out of position.
And he's building up to his... He's not able to get it just yet. He's just getting back to base. Has the components for Righteous Glory. But once he does get Righteous Glory, those are 2 opportunities if you don't catch, or at least count Flash, in which you can start a fight for yourself. Be able to utilize the vision control that you have to be able to get a pick onto Doinby, Flawless, Mouse. So it's getting harder and harder for Rogue Warriors to deal with BLG's form of engage.
I like how you automatically assumed it would be any of the top 3, because we know the duo is SMLZ and Killua, who has Spell Shield and Tom Kench for Devour. Plus, it's so hard to kill the Tom Kench even if you pull him out of position.
Yeah, it's usually difficult. I mean, at this point in time, it might be just the go-to, just because you do have a lot of damage underneath you to kill the tank before he ends up flashing out. Of course, just counting Zoe, GP, Sivir's consistent damage now that she has the Static Shiv. It's possible, and teams can do that if they want to be able to have a more decisive fight, not looking towards Tom Kench and saying, well, every single time his W cooldown is off, he's probably just going to save another person.
Still, though, Rogue Warriors defending as wave after wave is pushed in. Jin Zhao even stepping up. That's a crit onto Flawless. 207 CS to 171. The finished 2 items to 1.5 for SMLZ. And they are working down these turrets. BLG putting up this vision in the jungle.
Yeah. SMLZ can't farm. He doesn't have the opportunity to. They're being bounced between top lane and mid lane consistently.
Redemption used as picked up by the likes of Athena to further spot out some damage. Rift Herald immediately dropped in the mid lane. The Ornhorn is going to interrupt it. Knockup carrying 2 members of BLG, but there's no follow-up for Flawless. Still, Jin Zhao already racing in to get some damage on the turret despite the fight being denied.
Real regret coming out of SKS. 2 ways to basically cancel out the Rift Herald channeling was coming through. Killua's, at least I guess the Ornn ulti was actually Road, so it was just the Flawless engage to stop SKS from channeling it. Really good job from him. It's going to be a little harder for BLG to look to take down this tower.
That being said, this is the last tier 2, and BLG are showing no signs of slowing down, chipping away at the turret despite the wave clear of this Karma and Jinx. Sleepy Trouble Bubble hits Killua down to about a third of his health, but still holding on to that gray health. Now we finally got Mouse grouping up with his team to try and defend, but the next wave is coming in. Athena with the recall uses his teleport to get back in, as picked up by Spell Thief.
Just need to look for a Sleepy Trouble Bubble onto the Karma. Ooh.
Zoning away right in the middle of the lane. They chunk it down to half. Flawless has no ult on it. He goes too far forward, breaks into Cell Division as Road backs away. Teleport from Mouse to keep his jungler alive, but it's only a matter of time as he gets up and saved by Killua and is spat back out. Still, the siege continues.
So much wasted time coming out of BLG. They might be able to get the turret now that it is much lower in HP, but they're dealing with the Sleepy Trouble Bubble spams so well.
There's Thrill of the Hunt on the hunt used. They dive in. Predator to try to get back in. Impale is ready. Call of the Forge God knocks up and no misses as Impale pulls SMLZ out of the way, but they still get the kill. Amazing J will die to the turret as they were too focused on the kills than to finish it off. And still the turret stands. Somehow Rogue Warriors hold their ground.
Yeah, they lose one pick for it. SMLZ was a pretty key proponent, of course, of clearing the wave, so they might be able to get it out.
Jin Zhao still firing attack after attack. Doinby at such low health has to back away. Flawless finally gets back in. He's got his ultimate ready once again. Picks up the Skarner, but there's nobody there to save him this time as Killua has already backed away. And BLG walk away with the turret and 2 kills.
There we go. You keep trying. You finally get it. And even though Rogue Warriors wasted a lot of time, it's going to tank that.
Yeah.
Bad timing on the spell shields.
Yeah.
But they finally get the turret. And I'd say the biggest meaning for, of course, taking down all of the inner turrets are, of course, the Baron that's up and available. Rogue Warriors are going to have such a tough time being able to get vision on it. I think Doinby should just trade out his current trinket for a blue one, just so he can get some vision off of BLG's current position.
Take a look at that gold difference between AD carries. You thought SMLZ was scary in game 1. Well, how's about 4,000 gold 22 minutes in as an advantage for Jin Zhao? Even in the mid lane, we're seeing a 700 gold lead for Athena. In the top lane, a 2,000 gold lead for Amazing J. This is 10K up for BLG 23 minutes in.
Yep, it's massive. You look towards the difference between last game and this game, it is a gold lead, a significant one. The composition that can still teamfight you and can poke you. So later on in the game, they don't descale comparatively to what BLG had last time. So this time around, not only are they playing better in the early game, but they have options and windows in these later game fights. It's not going to happen for quite some time, but it probably won't happen if they take down the Nexus. Right now, BLG are on fire.
They certainly are, and you are correct, Rez. It is very difficult to have a team fight if your Nexus has been destroyed.
That is true.
That's Flawless. He's found 2. Going to try to carry them away. Kidnaps onto SKS, who's still alive, finally dies. Call of the Forge God stalls it out, but here's Jin Zhao from behind. Boomerang Blade plus bouncing crits does some big damage. 5 members of Rogue Warriors, and Killua tries to save himself, but Sleepy Trouble Bubble lands. Athena follows up the shield. Ooh, is not needed as the Paddle Star misses.
That was really unfortunate coming out of the side of BLG because those were 2 opportunities Athena had in terms of Sleepy Trouble Bubble on primary targets. One on Doinby, the other one on Killua. He had it on Doinby. Only problem was, of course, GP ulti procced it, so he was able to get out of there scot-free. And then, of course, the next one was on Killua, SMLZ, but they were all pretty much slowed. There was no way for him to basically assassinate both Doinby or SMLZ that would have given them the opportunity to base and look for the Baron.
Could be seeing another skirmish over this blue buff here. BLG immediately turning towards the next objective, the next thing that they can fight over. Athena is sitting around the red buff. He's been spotted out by Rogue Warriors, looking for an assassination but not finding it, as instead BLG turn their attention towards this next Cloud Dragon. 2 of them at this point. And still, somehow, Rogue Warriors are stalling out this game, losing as little as possible, fighting tooth and nail to get SMLZ the items he needs.
Yeah, it's in part due to the fact that BLG are starting to make mistakes. The first one, of course, 2 members looking for invade on red side. We talked about BLG roaming as a team. That was not a good example of that. They need to play together if they want to be able to get the vision control on red side jungle, and they need to look to accelerate the game with the vision control they currently have. Look how many control wards they had towards Baron. They're not using it properly. So they already pinged it. Baron has to be a priority. They need to push into both mid lane and top lane, get control of the red side jungle, this time with their full team, and then look to start out Baron.
For now, they're just trying to secure vision for themselves. You can see 3 control wards in the pockets of both SKS and Rhodes. So definitely apparent who that vision priority falls onto. Meanwhile, that's Call of the Forge God. Killua is the target, but SMLZ is locked down. Teleport coming in from Mouse. He just drops into mini form, but still, they're killing the support. SMLZ kites it away, effectively slowing. Doinby's going to look to harry them as they make their way towards the Baron. But BLG have found some momentum here. What are they going to do with it?
Yeah, really good pick on engage onto Killua. It was a great area to throw your Orin ulti at. Ball is going to have a tough time.
Oh, catches him out of mid-air. Get over here. Pulls Death Attack right back down to the ground. Oh boy, that feels bad. Now they've got the go button to turn towards the Baron.
Yep, I don't know what to tell you. Ain't no way you're getting out of that one. So now, no jungler, no Tahm Kench. There's no tank for Rogue Warriors, as Mouse has gotten that split push build going from Black Cleaver and of course Frozen Mallet. They're gonna have a tough time taking this.
Athena on the side, manages to find SMLZ, still somehow clips him with the side of the Paddle Star. The Baron has been taken in the meanwhile, and with SKS retreating as best he can because SMLZ is doing damage. Somehow he's still up. They managed to kill Doinby. Finally a slow tags on. Killua back in, but Call of the Forge God back up. Over the wall goes SMLZ. He gets excited and tries to retreat, but Athena chases it down. The shutdown kill, and 13 kills to 3, BLG with the Baron.
Finally claps him, but it was taking a long time to finally get to SMLZ. Athena in that fight plays it incredibly well, gets the pick onto Doinby, and then you know what? Killua's like, delivery service. You're right on top of SKS.
Trying to retreat with that get excited, but not able to. And now the inhibitor line has been broken. In 27 minutes, BLG have done what they could not do at all in that game 1.
Yeah, 3 items onto Jinx, but you know what? You're right. The game's been accelerated. The inhibitor mid lane is down. Now the primary worry Rogue Warriors have is not so much defending the base from the enemy team, but from the minions themselves. Looking back at this, of course, team fight, Rogue Warriors trying to fight without 2 members. And so while SMLD is doing a great job of kiting back, being able to take down SKS, Jin Zhao, Amazing J, all that good stuff, look at Athena here. Proper assassination onto Doinby. And with the barrel picking up SMLZ, that's the go sign for Amazing J and the rest of BLG to look at this fight.
Yeah, a huge attempted outplay from SMLZ. He was doing massive damage over the course of that fight. I think even I was surprised at how much that he was able to output, but just repositioning himself around, Doinby even getting some big damage as well, but just not quite enough as BLG show that they still have the outplay potential, just landing those Sleepy Trouble Bubbles, landing those Paddle Stars. Athena coming up clutch on his, at this point, signature Zoe.
That's true. Right now, he's been doing a lot of good work on the champion. And it seems like while Rogue Warriors have to be constantly aware of their positioning, BLG doesn't have to.
Immediate dive. They chunk Mouse down to half with a single Paddle Star. The attempted save from SOLZ critting on the minions, but they're baroned up. They're still alive. Athena steps in, and they finish off the inhibitor. Rogue Warriors step back to heal themselves up, but already 2 inhibs down. Talk about accelerating the game. Rogue Warriors might be looking for a pick here. They carry SKS back. He's retreating as best he can. Does not have flash, but is still alive. And look at the fights that they are taking. Doinby is slowed by the barrage and killed off by the crits. They chase it up for another. The flash exhaust onto SMLZ. And BLG in 29 minutes are able to do it. They turn onto the Nexus turrets and use their momentum to break the base of Rogue Warriors, bringing us to a Game 3.
And a nice punch back coming out of BLG. I like that. One big thing that I want to point out, of course, was the Sivir pick. I really like the pick just because, sure, I was thinking, oh, maybe you add into the Janna as well, and suddenly you have pushing priority at all times. But they still had that with the tank of the Ornn. They also just had the engage as well. What Sivir provided not only was the speed boost with the Skarner pick to start those engages, but you saw in the end of the game, sure, Jinx does a lot of damage. Ricochet with full crit does as well.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of damage as Jin Zhao, not only helping your team out, but also providing the damage as well. So hyper carry. Also, you know, Jin Zhao could play that too.
Stepping forward, controlling the lane, controlling the game. And though Rogue Warriors tried to get themselves back in just through sheer mechanics, they didn't have the damage. They didn't have the items that they needed in order to compete because of that laning presence from BLG. And look at how smooth and easy it was for BLG to try to get back in. That's with Rogue Warriors fighting tooth and nail to stall these fights out.
Yep. This time around, Rogue Warriors do have at least one winning lane, and that was Mouse on the Gnar. We just didn't see too much of effectiveness coming out of him. He had to rush his own kind of speed, I would say. He doesn't have the time to be able to bully Amazing J constantly if he has to answer towards a bottom lane fight. This time it was the dive that was happening. He had a great ulti, but from that point forward, he's just constantly answering to BLG's plays, BLG's fights. It's not a position you want to be.
It certainly isn't, especially against the likes of Amazing J, who so often we call the heart and soul of BLG because he's the shot caller. He's the guy who manages to pull together these late game miracles. Well, we haven't seen them play that style in a few weeks now. They're evolving into something completely different. This is like an Eevee. We've got our base level BLG. Which form do they take next? It looks like they've got some mid-game fire in them.
Oh, I might go with the spiked electrocutie one. I don't know their names, but I like that one personally.
The spiked electrocutie
just because it feels like they can hit you in all angles. Mid lane seems to be a good one. Bottom lane seems to be a good one. Currently, it seems like Amazing J, even though we had great team fights, you could play through Athena. And as long as you can play through multiple aspects, Athena specifically looking great this game. Don't know how you can attack that in the drafting phase.
It's certainly going to be challenging, but now it's up to our analysts to break down that game too.
You can take the spiked electrocutie. I'll take the one from the Blue Man group,
It has
whichever
a
one
name,
that is.
you animal. Jolteon.
Disappointed with Raz on the desk there, but you know, it was still BLG able to come back in game number 2. They tied it up 1-1, and it was 3 kills away from a perfect victory for them as well, tearing apart this team composition that they set up for Rogue Warriors.
It was a night and day performance between games 1 and 2, respectively, here for BLG, and the reason for that does always start through the drafting phase, and it's actually for both teams. So you can see them on your screen right now. Of course, the drafts are completed. The Zoe's picked for Athena. It was compared in the cast even to the Lee Sin of Flawless. That's how good he seems to be. Now, Athena hadn't picked Zoe for like 3 weeks of the season. Picks it once, hard carries. And now every single time BLG play, you have to ban Zoe. It was banned in game 1 by Rogue Warriors. Wasn't in this game. They changed it to a Caitlyn for no particular reason. And now it is going to be something that is a big part of why they lost the game. So that's step number 1. The Zoe was there. The Gangplank's the other one, and this is shared by both teams respectively. So in game 1, Rogue Warriors, they had the Gangplank. In game number 2, BLG had it. And both Gangplanks have looked outstanding, and they've both been major parts as to why the games have been victories. And so you're looking at Rogue Warriors again, saying, I understand what you're doing with your composition. 3 out of 5 of the composition is the same. The jungler can change if they'd like here and there. But the Gnar instead of the Gangplank, more importantly, giving the other team the Gangplank, who's just so good at kiting and dealing damage and killing carries, did actually mean a great deal.
It's giving over gameplay to Amazing J as well. He had a great performance on the champion. They had Gnar up in the top lane against him. However, Gnar wasn't able to lock down Gangplank, and the entire time, most of the game focused around the bottom side of that. We saw Gangplank ultimates during the initial turret dive, and we also saw a fight taking place around blue buff where BLJ were able to swing the game in their favor and take control and control the rest of the map as well.
Yeah, that first major fight of the game that you see for BLG. Almost deja vu, you would imagine, from game number 1. Once again, BLG starts strong. They were able to continue that strength through, however, and a lot of this is because Rogue Warriors, again, we speak towards their composition. Well, now you're seeing it in effect. Mouse and Doinby are trying to flank. They're not actually playing front to back with the Jinx, and now one of them's already dead. SMLZ can't deal damage. Suddenly this whole team composition just completely finds itself in shambles. There is no usefulness for it being there at all, and this is one of those situations where the team fight is lost. The Gnar and the Karma are trying to flank, and you're like, they almost already felt desperate in that situation. But you ask yourself, why does the Jinx get picked at all? If that's how they're going to play the team composition out, why not make that the Varus that they hovered, that they considered? And why force yourself into the Jinx composition so willingly?
On top of that, the Zoe is able to chunk out Jinx during those early team fights, something that you would not be able to do later on like we saw from game number 1, but early on to the match was crucial in knocking SMLZ out of the team fights. They gave away Skarner as well, which was used a lot more effective, I have to say, from SK scares during the earlier mid games that we saw from
Yes.
Flawless in game 1.
And this still comes back as a recipe for success for both teams, respectively. Rogue Warriors have lost both early games, even though they won the first game. So coming into the second game, having the Skarner on the winning early game side enables that level 6. And a lot of the strength, a lot of the advantages did come down to the level 6 dive we saw in the bottom lane to get the Jinx behind. That snowballed the Sivir, snowballed the bottom lane of BLG, and they were able to continue that through the rest of the map by protecting Jin Jiao. The Skarner enabled that. The Zoe enabled that. These changes in the draft from BLG, it almost feels like they completely downloaded the composition of Rogue Warriors. They completely understood the strategy, and their backstage discussions were very clever.
You even see there, Paddlestar hits SMLZ. Now that we're late game, he's going to heal back up to full health, but it doesn't matter too much because BLG able to turn this around from one Gangplank barrel.
Yeah, and you're seeing this moment in the game where Rogue Warriors tried to make that miracle again, where the composition may be something close to good, but they were so far behind at this stage just because of the extra mid-game things that BLG were getting, that at that point, Jinx was doing damage, but it was never going to get resets, never going to mean kills, because the rest of his team was dying around him, and a lot of that is the Sivir dealing damage in that situation. I do think the Sivir was a very smart pick from BLG, and they played around Jin Jiao. They almost said, okay, your strategy, Rogue Warriors, is to let SMLZ carry. We can do the same thing, but we'll just have a push composition around ours instead, get a gold lead. There's nothing you can do.
Kept them shoved underneath the turret the entire game. Dove that turret at level 6 when Skarner was able to hit that with the Gangplank, who picked up MVP in that match after a good performance coming out from Amazing J.
Honestly, it was a good showing from Amazing J. I personally would have preferred if it went to the AD carry, but so be it. He was 7-1-7. He was involved in most of the kills, and a major part, once again, of why they were able to win game number 2. And this momentum from BLG, something you expect to see in the third game. The Gangplank is going to be a higher contested pick, and I do feel like as the draft now starts to change and starts to shift, we might see less Jinx because you have to have higher priority on these picks like Gangplank.
Potentially, Kog'Maw is not getting through the draft phase. We'll have to see if Rogue Warriors can change things up in the bottom lane where they're so focused on in every single one of their matches. We're going to a break. We'll come back with game number 3 in just a bit.